It's a sure thing. Change, change. Expect a miracle change. Watch me change when you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things. The things you look at change. Now do change. Change.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Spirit Cafe Show here on the New Thought Media Network. I am so delighted to be here with you today. I'm Barbara Jean.
And I'm Marg Dupuis, and I'm from Unity Kitchener.
And we are excited to share today's show, but let's begin with a little bit of information. The show is all about courageous conversations. And today we're going to explore the stigma attached to the term Christian-based. So that's going to be good. It's going to be good. So don't go away. So let us begin with the land acknowledgement. And I'm sharing the land acknowledgement from where I am. And we're honored to be meeting on the land of many First Nations, Inuit, Métis people from across Turtle Island. And we acknowledge and thank the original caretakers and knowledge keepers of this territory, the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat. We also give thanks to all other Indigenous peoples, recorded and unrecorded, who have shared responsibility for this territory. In honoring the Dish with One Spoon Treaty, which protects this territory, we accept our responsibility to peaceably share and care for the resources that surround us. We also acknowledge, as inhabitants of these lands, that inequity and discrimination continue to affect our BIPOC and 2S LGBTQ+ family. We therefore strive to be allies and take an active part in reconciliation. Recognizing our ultimate oneness and acknowledging our reality, past and present, we commit to moving forward in a spirit of mutual cooperation. We are one. Mark.
Well, today we have an exciting guest on our show, Reverend Thomas Deschutter. And you have a significant bio, Reverend Thomas, and what I would like to do is point out a few things that I noticed, that you're a lover of life and a champion of what is possible. Wow, that sounds amazing. You're a financial advisor, a biker, a drummer, a minister in Vancouver. And question for you, how did you make the leap from being a financial advisor, a biker, a drummer, to being a minister?
No idea. So that question, how did I make the leap? I first think I've done okay with it. I've made the leap okay. I'm still running my practice though, my financial services practice. I still have days during the week where that is my sole work during the day. Mm-hmm. And motorcycling is a new thing for me that I took on a couple of years ago. That's something I wanted to do for the best part of probably 35 years and just never got around to it till finally I was just like, okay, if I don't do this, I never will. And then I'll be dead. So I took that on, which then led to the beautiful road trip I had to ordination.
Oh my gosh, that's
in Kansas, where I rode my motorcycle from Vancouver Island to Missouri and back. Something the biggest trips I had done on my motorcycle were like a couple hours on the island. That's it. So this was, to just head out on the road on my own with nobody to assist me on, something I had never done before, especially on a motorcycle. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah, it's all been an unfoldment. And if I go back to your question, I was an altar boy growing up. I spent, there was a few years I was raised in a very loving, very Catholic household where my dad's rules, he had two rules. It was you go to church on Sunday with the family and you don't disobey my wife. That was it. Like that, other than that, I could talk back to him, but I couldn't really talk back to my mom. That led to trouble. And then if you didn't want to go to church on Sunday, there was the door. That was it basically. So when I got to 18 and I didn't want to go to church on Sunday anymore, there was the door. And he was true to his word. And I was the last of 6 kids, so I already knew that he would be true to his word because others felt the same way at certain times. So
Wow.
anyhow, I think it was in there somewhere in there was this desire to understand our place in the universe at a deeper level than just we're just part of the animal kingdom, that there's a spiritual something within us. And back then, that religion didn't do it for me. It left me with too many questions. And so I needed to go out and find answers, which I played music for a long period of time. And I'm a huge rock fan. My favorite band is Rush. And so I like progressive rock. I like deep thinking lyrics. And I've always just been that way. So for me, it seems natural to be here. But it also does seem like, 6 years ago, if you just said, hey, you're going to be a minister, I would have kind of just laughed at you, right? Like it wasn't on my radar to do, but then here we are.
Well, it's interesting that Mark's background is also Catholicism and raised in a very loving, devout Catholic home. And so you guys have something to talk about. Me, I was raised without religion, so I found my path, probably accidentally, but it's a rich experience. Mark, you have some questions.
Well, I do, and I just wanted to touch on the fact that I grew up in a devout Catholic home, very loving. My dad's side of the family, French Roman Catholic, and my mom's side of the family. My grandfather was an Orangeman, and there was a deep love between my grandfather and my father, and so I got the whole picture. And so I'm very grateful for that. And often people will say, "Oh my goodness, you grew up Catholic, and like this," but I didn't. I don't feel that I was badly treated in the Catholic religion. Some of the nuns, not so great, but yeah. So when I went on a search and I listened to one of your talks when I think in May, and I found it quite interesting. And you told the story about Adam and Eve, and I just was left wondering about the end of that story and where it tied in with unity or your beliefs. And I'm wondering if you could touch on that.
I'll try. I don't remember the talk, so I would say that most of this, at least my experience of it, and I'm green. I've been a minister for a second, really, in the grand scheme of it all. So it's all brand new to me. However, what I will say is that, as Charles Fillmore said, I reserve the right to change my mind. I will stand by that. I'd say that even since that talk and now, more and more, I see the Bible as a psychological understanding, science of mind approach. That if you want to metaphysically understand our existence, the Hebrew scriptures, the New Testament are a great place to look as stories to begin to understand ourselves. And what I find when I approach scripture from that place of how does this show up in me? What can I take in me from this? Then the stories change. And so the story of Adam and Eve to me is really just an understanding, a beginning to unfold how we are as humans, that we do have questions, that we are going to push boundaries, that we are going to test things even though we're told we're not supposed to test them. You know, I can think of my kids. I think of myself as a kid. As soon as you said don't do that, I'm like, wait a second. Even now, I want to break the rules. You know, as soon as somebody tells me you can't do that, I'm like, well, is that true? I can't do that. So I would say I see the Bible more as a place to get insight into my own experience of life, and then hopefully I can continue to teach from that place, and hopefully the stories continue to evolve within me. That there's more than one meaning that you can take from it. There's more than one angle you can approach it from.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that answered your question, because I don't remember what the talk was, but I would say that
About returning to the garden or something like that. It was about the Garden of Eden. And you were talking about the two creation stories in the book of
ah
Genesis.
so
Yeah.
I would say the overlying theme of that was returning to our so where I live on Vancouver Island, I have always felt this is a very spiritual place. When we used to come over from Vancouver, as soon as we got off the ferry when I was a kid, it felt like I had entered a new world. There was just something about Vancouver Island that always resonated with me. I didn't know years later I would end up moving there and becoming a minister while being on the island. But our connection with the Snuneymuxw people here, mainly Tsimquatin, who comes out and speaks at our center and has a lot of involvement in what how we're trying to understand our relationship to the indigenous people. I take their approach of getting in nature and understanding nature as a return to the garden, that if we actually began to take a step back, technology is great, but it's not the answer to everything. Science is great, but it's not the answer to everything. There is a deepening and a return to what resonates in the world of our connection to the land, our connection to trees, our connection to wildlife, our connection to our own pets and animals, that is all part of us, and we're all one of the same thing. We're all part of the same energy, frequency, and vibration. And so that, I think, was more of where I was headed with that conversation.
What's exciting about that is, when I think about the state of the world right now with global warming and etc., had we left the indigenous people and learned from them rather than forcing our beliefs on them, we actually would still have a pretty beautiful world to live in. Because I think they had it right.
Yeah, there's a lot of things they had right.
They really did. They really did, and I love that. And I think too, like one of my favorite books in the Bible is the book of Job, because all of us get a little self-righteous sometimes and think my way's the right way, and until we get smacked down. And of course, a little bit of information can be really bad.
Dangerous.
It's very dangerous because then I know, and I'm going to put my beliefs on somebody else, and that, of course, never works. So, all right. Well, Marg.
So yeah, you're just waiting for me to go, right? And so truth be told, you talk about Bible, and I just go, ugh, my guard goes up, and so I've learned to sit back and hear the story and absorb it, take it in, process. However, I still haven't got over the initial reaction to the word Bible, because there's so much in the Bible that is negative, and the story behind it seems cruel. So I don't know where to go with that. I'm trying to think of the Padraig story. I'm reading a book by Padraig, In the Shelter. Padraig, I won't even try and pronounce his last name. And he references quotes in the Bible. And the one that I'm thinking about right now, this little girl is saying to Patrick, why did God make Protestants? They hate us, we hate them. And she's from Ireland. And Patrick, talks in the book, not to her, but the lessons that were taught to her because of religion, because of the beliefs of religion. So, and
Can I jump in?
Yes.
Please do.
So right there, you've created for me a distinction, because there is the Bible, there is the lessons and teachings and the understanding of how we operate as humans that you can take from the Bible, because most of those stories, are they not real? Like,
happening right now.
Are we not seeing wars waged right now in the world over beliefs? So on that level, you can see that there's truth there, and what there is to do is to unpack the truth. Then there's religion, and how religion has used the Bible to accomplish certain things or to do certain things. And so what really helped me, and my journey to unity started with A Course in Miracles. I didn't expect it to be that way. My wife was a fan of Marianne Williamson and brought A Course in Miracles home. I ended up reading it, and I realized that by page 4, I had this epiphany that, Jesus and his teachings are not the same thing as my Catholic dogma, or not just Catholic, any dogmatic religion. They're separate. I can actually separate the two. And in that moment, I had a pathway to something different. The moment I had that distinction of they're two separate things, because I had combined them as one and made them both wrong.
Right.
In my world. Right. So now that I had that, I then had the opportunity in one of my early ministerial classes to realize that I had written down, my spiritual awareness, something to that effect. I forget what the class was, but I had to do a test. And in that test, everywhere I put down, I wanted nothing to do with the Bible. I wanted nothing to do with my old religion, blah, 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 blah. And Reverend Kelly Isola was leading the class, and we had a 45-minute meeting about this. And she said, isn't it funny that you're pursuing ministerial path on something that uses the Bible as a metaphysical interpretation? And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I got some work to do there. So that invited shadow work into my world, to look at that and go, I have stories that I've made up that aren't true. I've just made them up for whatever reason, to defend myself, to protect myself, whatever that was. They're stories that I've created. And guess what? I can rewrite those stories. I don't have to believe them anymore. I can actually be different about it. And so from there began the ability to embrace the preaching or the teachings in the Bible, to embrace Jesus as an individual and a metaphysical leader, a master teacher of something that I can now move towards, so that even the word Christianity, although I know what it can mean to a lot of people, and it can have a really awful feeling for a lot of people, I don't see myself as a Christian. I see myself as a follower of the teachings of what Christ consciousness looks like. So am I a Christian? I don't know. I'm not by what the definition that most people would aspire to believe it is. But do I like Jesus? Yeah, I think he's a cool dude. I think he had some really cool moments where he was just like, as a rock musician, he was giving it. He was fighting back. I mean, what more could a rock drummer want than to, stand up to the man? Come on.
And the key is he wasn't Christian. He was Jew.
Yeah.
He is Jewish, right? So I love this conversation, because I'm similar. I'm not a Christian. I am a metaphysician for sure, New Thought minister, and I see the Bible as a library of a lot of books written by a lot of people over a lot of years. And so they sometimes feel a bit disconnected, but if you go into any library, you're going to find things that disagree, which is perfect. But it is the human condition. We live our lives very separated. The challenge I have with Christianity, although there's a great quote in the book called The Wisdom Jesus. I don't know if you've read it, but if you haven't, it's brilliant. Um, and in there, she shares a quote by a Brit, and he says, Christianity hasn't failed, it just hasn't been tried yet. And I thought that really kind of speaks to kind of the typical religion that we see sometimes, where people are saying one thing and doing another. What I love about unity and the New Thought movement is that the teaching of Jesus is really about love, respect, compassion, and that's what we teach. And that, to me, is a beautiful thing. And if we can weave that into everything we do and begin to live more from the inside out, yeah, the positive path for spiritual living. It's that energy of living from our divine truth rather than I have to not drink, or I can't dance, or I don't get to play cards, or, I'm a divorcee, so I can never marry again. Like all these weird rules that some of the religions have, the Christian religions have, that for me didn't fit. And so there was all of these questions that I had, but I love the teaching of Jesus. I
Hmm.
just don't use his name in my center because oftentimes people misconstrue that to
Mhm.
mean something else. So it gets back to that stigma that has been applied to Christianity that makes the assumption that unity is the same as some traditional churches or Catholicism or whatever. Like we have mixed it up a little bit, and that's something that we can shift. We shift our thinking about it, and I love that
Hmm.
you mentioned that you had to reframe it.
Yeah, it's the subconscious mind needs to be retrained,
It
right? My
does.
assumptions need to be looked at. I mean, that isn't that what spiritual work is? I mean,
Yes.
it's not, I am not, I often think about this with talks. I am usually giving talks that I need to hear. I'm not thinking, oh, all of these people out there need fixing, and so I'm going to go give this talk to fix them. I actually am motivated by what I need to hear, what
Mhm.
I want to focus my life around, what's working for me in um, in my own spiritual development, my own human development, my own being a father and a husband and a leader and a congregant, just like everybody else. All of that stuff is relevant. And the other piece I'll add is then spiral dynamics has really helped as well,
Yeah.
because let's face it, Marg, what you brought up about why did God make Protestants, right? To actually think that there is a God, a thing out there that made Protestants
Mhm.
is kind of, I've seen some of the posts around this war in the Middle East. And in that language is, you know, my God will save us and
Mhm.
help us win the war or help us kill those other people. And I read that and I go, okay, I get where you're at. I just don't buy that. Like for me, that is not what God is.
Mhm.
And that's the work that I think I'm here to do in the world. Is I'm okay using the word God, I'm okay using the word Jesus. I need to do it in such a way that I can help people to heal what I had, because I had stigmas around those words too,
Yeah.
using those titles.
Mhm.
I had my own stigma around it, and now that I've done some work around that and I feel good about it, I think I can be a light to bring a new awareness to that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that.
I too am a huge Jesus fan, and it frustrates me when people speak and idolize this kind, gentle man and invite him to do things for them. And from what limited knowledge I have, that's not who he wanted to be. And as a matter of fact, I think he said, "Don't idolize me." And so I think the frustration I have about the Bible too is that it's used as a weapon, And so I still have, I understand your explanation. I appreciate it. And I think it's going to take me some work not to have that knee-jerk reaction. No problem with the word God, as long as somebody is not saying, "Oh God, please do this or that."
Yeah.
But yeah, in Patrick's book as well, he speaks of religion being an obligation as opposed to intuition. Yeah.
Yeah. Intuitively, we know so much. Intuitively, we sort of have an understanding of, there's a deep understanding to life when we allow ourselves to go inward rather than reacting to the world in front of us, but rather go inside and test the waters. What do I really believe about this? Even when we look at the wars that are happening around the world right now, for me, I'm always a bit confused um, by the way we treat one another. And what I love about Jesus was there was an example, and that's basically how he framed everything is all that I do, you can do in greater things.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come from that perspective of compassion and kindness, a peacefulness, a willingness to kind of be in life and to share the bounty of it, to talk to the Samaritan, to do those things where we start to bridge gaps rather than cause that separation. For me, that's the most important thing, is to find ways to come back together.
Mhm.
And that for me is the journey, that everything that I do is about waking up and doing the best that I can to assist others in their own waking. Like if I can share a piece of information that gives somebody an aha, that feels really great.
Mhm.
And I don't have to tell you how to live because it's none of my business how you live. How you live is your choice. And here's some tools, take them or leave them, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
here's unity is a positive path. Well, yeah. And some people look at it and go, yeah, I'm not interested in that. And it's like wherever you are is where you are, and what you believe and how you believe is a personal experience. And to just kind of have respect and space for each person and where they are. And I think that's how we begin to heal the world. And when I think about the idea of peace, peace is, when I looked it up in the dictionary, it's a noun. But I went, wouldn't it be great if it was a verb, right?
Mhm.
Because I need to be peace if
Mm-hmm.
I want to have a peaceful world. It's not that it's going to happen because somehow all challenges disappeared. That's not the case.
Mhm.
I have to be that. And so it is for me, it's a verb. And as I live from that personally, and when I forget, gently bring myself back to remind myself of the truth that I believe. And I think that's the journey we're on, is kind of dismantling some of the preconceived notions of what Christianity is, what the Bible is, what Jesus was, what, like, all of these things. There's been so much misinterpretation, so much editing. The Bible wasn't written in English. Go
Mhm.
figure.
Barbara, you just reminded me of something that I heard Thomas say in your talk, and that was about something about your mind and your heart, but it wasn't all that. You needed to take action. So it was, those were my words, not your words, but that's how I heard them. And I was taken in by those words, because it's not just about saying it. It's not just about believing it. It's about taking the action. That you got me there. You grabbed my attention. Would you like to speak about your encounter with I think he was biking as well, and he
Uh,
had some questions, and then you went for coffee?
you met another motorcyclist on getting on the ferry, and you had a conversation together about the word God.
Oh gosh. Man, I remember it happening. I don't,
Well, maybe
uh,
when we go for a break, it'll surface, and certainly.
Yeah.
that you don't have to answer
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
Well, let's
I-
go to that commercial break right now and give Reverend Thomas a minute to
See if
rethink
my,
that.
my wheels can turn.
Yeah, or we'll come up with something else as we do. So you're watching the New
Exactly.
Thought Media Network. This is Spirit Cafe with our wonderful guest, Reverend Thomas Deschutter, and Mark and I, and Reverend Thomas. We're going to be right back, so don't go away.
Mhm.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
And we're back. You're watching this Spirit Cafe show this Wednesday afternoon, and the Reverend Thomas Deschutter is here, and we're talking about the stigma attached to Christian-based terms. And we were asking you a question. Mark was asking you a question right before the break. Do you have any memory of that, or should we move on to Cheryl's quote?
First of all, that break was awesome.
Thank you.
I was just like, wow, look at this. All of these sponsors and then these different little commercial segments. They were awesome. Thank you. Well, my brief recollection is I ran into a motorcyclist when you're on a motorcycle, it's pretty easy to get along with another motorcyclist. Like there's an immediate commonality that you share.
Yeah.
And so we ended up having, I just remember having a conversation with him about religion and God. And I don't remember how we got onto the topic of that I was a minister and all of that stuff. I just remember having that conversation, and I saw in him much of my own self in my, what I used to be my allergic reaction to the word God or anything to do with organized religion. And I just remember having that conversation with him. I don't, I have to say, when I give talks, I just allow whatever to come into my head. I do a little bit of filtering, but hopefully it comes out in a way that is aligned with what my actual talk is about at the time. But I don't remember, like, I have some notes, but I usually end up not following my notes, and who knows where it ends up going. Hopefully it makes
with you.
sense. But I do remember having that conversation, and I wanted to go back. But I would like to actually go back to something, Marg, you were talking about, the idea of action and beingness.
Mhm.
And I mean, that falls right in line with Unity's 5 principles, right? Of, there is this source, there is this powerful source that we are all part of, that great entity that is larger and bigger than anything we can imagine, that is what actually is the unfolding of everything we seem to think we know about existence itself. There's that. And then they're seeing that in everybody else, and they're seeing that in ourselves. Number 2 is to be able to understand that we are made in this likeness and image of whatever that is, whatever likeness and image that is what we are. We are the interstellar galaxy itself in us. I am made from the dust and the stars, and the oceans roll through my veins. A quote from a Rush song. Like, that is just like, yeah, I resonate with that. Number 3 is we think. So we have the ability to think and have thoughts, which our words are, whether we're speaking them or thinking them to ourselves. We are putting together language and using words. That is one of our powers, the 12 powers. It's located here, but it's also what we think. Then we have the ability to affirm those words. So we speak in a way of affirming, I am peace, to put it as a verb. I am love. I am life itself. And then none of it matters unless we live that truth we know. And that is the action part of Unity's 5 principles, that it's okay to have all of those beliefs, but if you're not going to actually live them and be the truth, then it's not really going to work for you. And so I can attest for myself, who's had numerous struggles in my life, that since I began my path with Unity, my life and my ability to be with people and my ability to forgive everything has increased dramatically, and I'm in the most calm and peaceful place I've ever been in my life. And I can say that because I have people that come up to me and go, "You are so calm." And I'm not trying to brag about that. That is now an honor for me, to know that that people can see me as somebody they can approach, because I'm not going to freak out, because I have a calmness to me that I can only attribute to my meditation and prayer practice and my understanding of Unity teachings. And that's where the benefit lies for me. And that's where I have to give credit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Cheryl shared a quote, or wrote in the chat, which was wonderful. Um, and it was the idea of peace being a verb, which you just touched on again. And yes, in order to bring peace to our world, each of us needs to be peace. We need to choose how we want to be in response to the ugliness that's showing up. And I think part of that is to not take sides, right? Like, we have to know that all of us have that divinity. All of us are on a journey as a collective, and all of us are impacting the whole through our thoughts, actions, and deeds, right? All of it there's only one thing. And so being whatever we want to see. And I think that's where the disconnect comes for some of us, is that we're looking at the world going, yeah, but look at it's terrible, bad, awful. No, it is unfolding consciousness. So the terrible, bad, awful we're looking from. And so I have to choose to look from a new lens if I want to see a new world order. And I think all of us have the opportunity to be the change we want to see in the world, as Gandhi would say, and be that peace. But it requires that we be it in the midst of chaos, confusion, upset, that we maintain that. So good for you to be able to just kind of be that Zen person in the midst of it all. I think
Yeah.
that's what we get from this teaching.
Yeah. Can I add to what you said, Barbara? That
Please.
for me, it even goes a bit deeper, and it's actually knowing that ugliness is in me.
It is, yes. Yeah.
And knowing that, you know, and
Mhm.
I've had this conversation with somebody who's a dear friend of mine who's got a lot more at stake in the current strife in the Middle East than I do, other than on a human level.
Mhm.
Um, he has family over there, and we got onto the conversation about fighting. And so, you know, I like to believe that I would somehow find a passive resistance to it.
Mm.
You
Mhm.
know, I like to believe that about myself.
Yeah.
However, when I really look at myself, if somebody was threatening my kids in that
Exactly.
manner, if there were people that were going to, you know, do harm to my children, murder them, rape them, all of those things, I don't think I would stand by idly. I
No.
like to think I would find a nice Buddhist meditative path to allow whatever to unfold and be ready to forgive. But I don't think that's real. I think that my ability to meet that aggression with that same level of aggression is definitely within me. And
Mhm.
so part of it is coming to that realization that I can point my finger at those people and say they're bad, but at the same time, I have to realize that that's in me.
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
if I heal that in me, then I can actually share that light
Yeah.
Yeah.
from
And
that
that
place, right?
yeah. And that's the key, right? That's the whole, like I sometimes use the whole Ho'oponopono from Hawaii, you know, where I am that which I am looking at. And I think when we come to understand our oneness, we realize, because I'm with you. If somebody goes after my kids, I'm not sure how zen I'm going to be. Most of the time I'm pretty peaceful, joyful, you know, happy person, and mess with my family, and that might it's probably going to change.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I know, you know, it's this, and it's like, you know, Jesus chasing out the money changers, getting angry. And so I think we have to look at, Cheryl just said, it doesn't mean we don't do anything, it's how we do it. And
Mhm.
I think that's the key. And I think too, as we're holding prayer, because we're all doing that, that we can't pray for one thing. We have to pray for the whole of it, right?
Mhm.
Because all of it, like everybody feels right about what they're doing. And so we have to just, when we're separate from it, I mean, it's a little different when we're over here and they're over there, and we can, you know, we're not deeply impacted like your friend is. That's a whole other story. And I'm with you on that. And for me, when I look at, especially as somebody who prays for, you know, different resolutions or healing or whatever, coming to understand that healing is not a cure, that healing is an awakening of consciousness or a transformation within myself to expand or broaden the way I view the world and the people in it and everything that's going on. And can I be compassionate with my own anger, my own sense of injustice? I do social justice work, and there are moments when you know, I have to bite my tongue a little bit and take a moment with myself to
Mm-hmm.
go, what is my best course of action with what I'm seeing right now? And so this is one of my platforms to be able to share different ideas and thoughts. So yeah, I love what you said, because it's absolutely the truth. I think all of us could agree with that. We're
Yeah,
going to
and it's
fight
taking
back.
a moment, like, you know, how do I want to respond to this? Like,
Mhm.
imagine, and I've shared this in many talks I've done at Unity. Take a breath.
Take a breath.
And so going back to, and here I can, you know, I can go off on a tirade about the breath of life and Genesis and that first breath and the metaphysical importance of what that is. Like, if we don't have breath, we're not alive.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So there is so much in taking a breath. Like,
yeah,
that just brings you back to your root or
yeah,
root.
Mhm.
But that just brings you back to your like, just pause and take a breath
yeah.
and see what is going on within you. See what you're thinking.
Mhm.
Take note of, and I often say this on, I do a lot of live sessions on Insight Timer, and I often say this on Insight Timer, that it all begins, you have to first notice. Like, it's great for us to sit here and preach all of this stuff to people and go, yeah, we can all do this and look at us and love, love, love. But if somebody isn't in a place where they can at least first notice who they're being and how they're showing up, that is like, that's the starting point for anybody to begin to heal anything that's going on within them. Is you
Exactly.
have to first notice, and then from there you can build. You can take that next step of taking a breath. You might still freak out after, go for it, do what you need to do in that moment. But as you train and that's why it's called a practice, as you train and practice and meditate and pray and do all of those things, it becomes the way of being.
Yeah.
So thank you for your candor when you spoke about, okay, I can sit over here because it's not happening to my family. However, if I'm faced with my family being in danger, that may be a different story for you. So thank you. That was, I think, brave to say that out loud. You're talking about being in a very calm state right now, and when you present yourself to the world, how do people react? Do you get any negativity because you're presenting in a calm manner? It's interesting. We just had a similar conversation in our spirit group today about being a calm person in a stressful situation and people not enjoy and appreciating it. So I wonder how you respond. How are you seen?
Well, I've had some kickback to how I show up in the world. A lot more when I was younger. It's less now. So how I respond is I try not to respond in my emotion at the moment. So my space is to remember that I need to take a moment, I need to take a breath, and I need to come from a place of love. And this is going to sound weird, but I really try to fall back a lot on my remembering of the landmark form that I did in 2004 of not making other people wrong, understanding that everything we have just discussed is just my opinion.
Exactly.
And it doesn't mean it's right. It's just my opinion.
And
So
you
if
have the right to change your mind.
exactly, so if I can show up in that manner
Yeah.
and remember all of that stuff when somebody doesn't like how I'm showing up or doesn't agree with me or wants to confront me on that, then I can always remember that, hey, they are entitled to whatever they're feeling or thinking. Who am I to judge them and tell them differently? And so if I can be in that space and I can keep bringing myself back to that space, I have a very good chance of bringing the temperature down and having it be resolved. We may not agree with each other. That's fine. I don't need everybody to agree with me, and I don't need to agree with everybody else. That's just not what I need. I need to be in a place of calm, loving appreciation for all living creatures, even if they are challenging me to my core.
Well, one of the things I learned early in ministry, it's one of my favorite things, is in being challenged by somebody and being so brand new and going, what do I do with this? And a minister said to me, just say, thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me more about that.
Yeah.
And people want to be listened to. And anything they're saying to me isn't about me anyway. It is about their experience of themselves, what they believe is right, etc. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Like you do a talk and somebody comes up and goes, oh man, when you started talking about that elephant, and you're like, I never talked about an elephant. Right. But you just, whatever they heard is whatever they heard, or whatever they got from it is whatever they got from it. And you just go with it. I'm not going to argue with them, but I don't remember talking about an elephant or whatever, but that's what your mind conjured up. So
Yeah. It's fascinating.
So
Mark.
Marg, did I answer your question? Did that help?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank
Okay.
you. Yeah, I love these conversations. For me, this is church. So because I don't learn so much in the written form. I learn by interaction, and I guess I have resistance to, the book or the Unity teachings on a piece of paper. I want to hear about them. I want to live them, explore, and have these conversations. So thank you for being here. And this is not goodbye. This is just an acknowledgement of your presence here and what you're gifting me with today.
Yeah, and what you're speaking to is how we all learn differently.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like there's a lot of times I just need an audiobook. I don't want to read it. I want to go on a walk and I want to put on the book and I want to have it ring through my life or my ears and my mind while I'm out in the forest. And it really deeply resonates with me when I'm doing that. And then there's times where I want to sit and read. Like right now I'm reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance for like the 4th time. Right.
That's a great book.
But I want to read that book. I don't want to listen to it. I actually want to read it. But there's a lot of stuff that I want the audio version so I can speed it up and have it, my brain can process pretty quickly. So I want to get to the heart, the nuggets as quickly as possible.
Well, and in ministry too, we're so very busy and constantly learning that I think having things happen a little bit quickly sometimes is really a benefit.
Yeah.
Big benefit. When you're talking about the forest, I think back to that Japanese practice of having, I can't remember what the term is, but it's a forest bath. It's going into the forest and really experiencing the ground, the trees, the air, like bathing in that energy of remarkable life that is there. And of course, you're very close to the rainforest there. And like Vancouver Island is spectacular.
I live 100 yards from 40 kilometers worth of trails through forest
Yeah.
that I walk every day with my dog. I'm
Yeah.
out there every single morning, pretty much when I'm not here, obviously I'm not, but like that's my morning. I get up and the dog and we go out on the trails and I am like just in nothing but life. It's just surrounding me, birds, deer, bears, cougars, dogs, cats. They're all sometimes people. Sometimes I see people on the trails. It's weird. It's like, wow, there's a person here. But no, it is great. And it's great to be able to sit. I have a few places that, funny story. So I have a few places where I sit and meditate. And I also have places where it's on a hill and there's trees and I practice sermons to the trees. So
you talked about it, that
yes,
that we listened.
yeah. So I pretend I used to pretend, and I still do actually. I shouldn't say I used to. In my world, what's happening when I speak to the trees and give my gratitude to the trees or give my talk to the trees, their root system is spreading my words all around the globe. So that's what I imagine when I'm doing that, and it just brings me such heaven. Like I just feel like, by the time I get home, I'm in a total place of anything can happen in my business world and I can respond to it in a place of calmness because I've had this great morning experience of settling myself and connecting myself to me and the very life that's around me.
That's beautiful. I love that. I love that. I think more time in nature is probably one of the most important things we can do. I was raised in Calgary, so I would drive to the Rockies and go hiking or, go into different areas of the parks and just wander because there was something about being in the mountains that was just so profound. And here, of course, in Toronto, I've got the lake and lots of trees. I mean, Toronto is a forest of itself, and so everywhere you go, there's huge trees. And I think that connecting to nature is one of the most important things that we can do to restore our balance. It helps us to connect. So good for you, and you live in the perfect place to do it.
Joni Mitchell, we got to get ourselves back to the garden.
Back to the garden. Yeah,
Come on, Woodstock is one of my favorite songs lyrically that anybody has ever penned. You know, we are billion-year-old carbon, right? Like it's
It's a great
she
song.
nailed it. She really nailed it on that song of what holds true for me. And I think that was that probably inspired that talk I gave too. I think that getting back to the garden was probably inspired
Mhm.
from Joni Mitchell. I just couldn't play the song at our center.
Actually, it was sung.
It was sung.
He sung it after your
Oh,
talk.
oh yeah, right. That was in Vancouver. That I did a talk at Unity of Vancouver. That's where
Yes.
that was from. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I did request that song, and we played it. I got to drum to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
Yeah.
awesome.
yeah,
I was listening to it in the shower this morning. It
yeah,
was great.
yeah.
Getting ready.
I suspect in the oneness and the connection with nature, that includes your pets.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
know for me, I have a strong connection with our dog, and I wonder about the connection that you have. I know you have a dog and a goat.
Yeah. Yeah. No, my dog is my pal. I actually have to give credit to my dog for where I'm at spiritually because it's because of him that I'm out there every day.
Yeah.
Like he actually forces me out the door, right?
Hmm.
The days that I don't feel like this morning or yesterday morning, it was pouring rain. We had snow last night, by the way. Here.
Whoa,
Yeah,
really?
yeah. We had snow here on Vancouver Island last night. It was
It's
cold.
21 degrees here
No,
today.
no, no. It is, and it was pouring yesterday, and there I am out there on the trail in my rain gear, just getting drenched with the
Yeah.
dog. And to do that at 7 or 8 in the morning is hard. And so but he forces me out the door, and then I'm grateful. And I'm like, yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, it feels good after the fact. We're
Mhm.
down to our last couple of minutes. And so, what I like to ask at the end is what is the one takeaway that you would love for our viewers to take from this message this afternoon?
Well, my living motto is everything you want for yourself and for your life comes from within you. That we don't need to look outside of ourselves. We don't need to look for another answer. There's no spiritual book or teaching that's going to solve your problems or anything like that. It might lead you somewhere. It might be a guide, but everything that you want is within you, and that's the work that there is to do. And it starts with loving ourselves and loving ourselves so much that we can give it away. Like when you love yourself at that level, you can just you don't need it from anybody else. You're just like, man, here's some love because I have so much of it. I'm just going to give it and I don't need yours back. I'm not going to hold you accountable. I'm not going to pin you down. Just have some love.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. That is fantastic. What about you, Mark? Do you have a final thought you'd like to leave everybody with today?
Keep open.
Open.
Yeah, keep open and listen. The teachers are all around us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think for me, all of, I look at all my tattoos and they're all about love. Because I agree with you completely that love is the answer, which is tattooed on my wrist. Um, I think that as we love ourselves enough, we strengthen ourselves and we do stop looking outside us for approval or appreciation or whatever. And we come to recognize that whatever I'm looking for, I'm looking with. And so if I can just bring myself back through meditation, through prayer, through journaling, forgiveness. We need a whole lot of forgiveness some days. And that to me is really, really powerful. Thomas, you have been an awesome guest. Marg, you've been my fabulous co-host again. Cheryl's
Thank
going to be
you.
back soon. She was in the room, so we're really grateful. She just said, great show. Thank you, everyone. So we'll have her back soon. And can't wait, my beloved sister. But my new sister, Marg, is like, she's doing good stuff. And
This was
Thomas,
great. Yeah,
yeah,
this was great. And Cheryl, get better.
yes, yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Prayers.
Yeah. And Thomas, just so you know, the bear that was being poked was me. I was the bear.
Ah.
You weren't.
It was a great show today. Thank you, everyone. You're watching the New Thought Media Network. This is Spirit Cafe Show, and we will be back again next week. So thank you for watching, and be sure to like, share, subscribe, and donate to New Thought Media Network. Bye, everybody. Thank you.